Ladies and gentlemen, this is the 12th and final round.
Right hand, Golovkin steps in and down he goes again. Unbelievable. Mayweather makes a pay. What a rookie mistake. A sensational left hook by De La Hoya.
It's fact. I'm the best. You know what I mean? Sometimes I don't want to believe it myself, but it's the truth. I'm the best.
I'm going to show you how great I am.
From Southern California, this is the Last Round Podcast.
Welcome back to episode 186 of the Last Round Podcast. Thank you again for joining us, coming off a weekend of fights on Friday and Saturday in the Southern California region, Top Rank on ESPN, and then DAZN in downtown LA. We had Arnold Barboza headline one card. We had Ryan Garcia headline another on Friday and Saturday, respectively. But before we jump right back into our normal fight reviews, our guest of the week, who my co-host Mike met on Friday, this past Friday in Temecula, California at the Pachanga Resort and Casino at the Top Rank on ESPN card headlined by Arnold Barboza. Kel Dansby of ESPN Ringside and the Corner Podcast joins us this week for the first time here on the Last Round. Welcome to the last round, man.
Man, thank you for having me. It was great meeting Mike in person at the card and sitting next to him and enjoying it. It was my first time down there. So it was cool to go and see the resort, see the venue. Wine country, can't beat that. So it was a nice little week out there. And then we had two good boxing matches. So it was cool. We got to talk and hang out at the fight. And then now I get to sit down here and recap it all with you guys. So it's amazing. Great way to finish off a good fight week.
Absolutely. And before we jump in, obviously, to the fight reviews of the past couple of days, Kel, for people who might not be familiar with your work, or maybe this is the first time they're hearing about you, give us a little bit of background of who you are and how you came into this crazy world we know as boxing.
Definitely. This would be my 10th year as a boxing journalist. I've worked in many places, but currently I run the ESPN Ringside social media accounts on all platforms. So if you guys see us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, man, we're also Facebook. If you follow ESPN Ringside for boxing news, I am the guy behind that. So I'm running that constantly every day, checking out different boxing events, doing interviews, everything in between for ESPN. So that is great. Love my time at ESPN. I'm coming up at 3 years there here shortly. Also the co-host of the Corner Podcast with Andreas Hale from Sporting News. And we've had that podcast 8 years currently. So it's our 8th year there. We record out of Blue Wire Studios at the Wynn Resorts Hotel and Casino. So that Wynn treats us beautifully. Blue Wire is an amazing team pushing behind us. So we talk boxing, MMA, and pro wrestling. 3 different shows every week. We have one for each. So if you're a diehard boxing fan, check us out on the boxing show. If you love a little bit of everything, listen to all 3. It's gratefully appreciated. Just had Oscar De La Hoya on recently. I've had great guests, tons of UFC guests, pro wrestling guests as well. So that is mainly what I do, those 2 platforms. But for, like I said, 10 years, been covering the sport, lived in Vegas for many of those years. Pacquiao Marquez 4 was my first fight ever in person.
Oh, wow.
Covering for an outlet. And
what a fight to start. Yeah, what a fight to start at, man.
It started the right way.
Mine was Gabe Rosado, Glenn Tapia.
Oh, so you just went to see a war. I just saw Gabe Rosado at the fight. He was there at the Ryan Garcia fight. Saw him this weekend. Man looks great for as many wild fights as he's been in, and he's still going. He is I don't want to call him a gatekeeper, right? Because we saw what happened last time. Someone thought he was a gatekeeper, knocked someone's block off. But he's definitely that measuring stick. Like, hey, you want to be a champion up there, 168, all this, like you fight Gabe and then come back to us. So it's great to see him in person as well.
He's definitely a television friendly fighter. That's what it is.
Hands down.
Yeah.
What was your first one, Danny? Can you outdo Cal?
Oh no, I can't outdo Pacquiao Marquez. Not at all.
Your very first one.
Man. Who was it? I think it was just a random Golden Boy card.
Kel, mine was at the Monte Carlo Thursday night, and that many fights fell off. The whole card was only 4 fights.
Wow. No,
Yeah.
yeah. I just remember not knowing where to go. It's packed because I had done other sports before then, but never boxing. And I remember it was such a big fight. I was, of course, like at that time, like in auxiliary seating. So I was like on that first like ramp up there. So
Right.
fans were to the left and right of me. And it looked like Pacquiao was like, kind of having his way with Marquez. Then he buzzed Marquez a little bit, went in for the kill. And then when Pacquiao got knocked out, everything exploded. I had my laptop on my lap. I'm trying to cover it with like from getting beer spilt on it. It took me, and it was an MGM Grand Garden, December, whatever that was now, December 2014, maybe. And I remember it took me 50 minutes to get from my seat through the little area right there where people give their tickets and security into the press room. If everyone's ever been to the MGM Grand, press room's not that far. Took me 50 minutes because the Mexican fans were incredible and they were doing chants every like 3 seconds. They stopped. They had the flags out. They're doing chants. They couldn't believe it. And yeah, I mean, for a second, people thought Pacquiao died. So like we had to wait.
It was a wild knockout, man.
Yeah, it was a eruption, silence for like 30 seconds, and it was eerie. And then Marquez started celebrating. It was like, all right, everyone went crazy again. But yeah, for a first fight, that was insane. And then now I don't know, 400 fights deep. So that's a long time ago.
It just keeps going, right? It just keeps going.
Yeah.
But jumping right back into it, fight reviews this past Friday, as we mentioned, the 15th of July, from the Pachanga Resort and Casino in Temecula, California, on ESPN. Not Plus. I was about to say Plus. It was on regular ESPN.
Regular ESPN,
right? Arnold Barboza Jr. remains undefeated at 27-0 with the 10-round unanimous decision win over Danielito Zorrilla, who takes the first professional loss of his career. This was for the vacant WBO Intercontinental Super Lightweight title. Barboza won by scores of 97-93, 98-92, and 97-93 once again. Kel and Mike were both there covering this event. Kel, we'll start with you. What's your immediate reaction to Barboza's win?
Barboza gets hit a lot. And that was the first thing that stood out to me, right? Like, he's not in trouble yet. We've seen him in firefights with other people and he comes out on top. And again, he has the power so far to keep people honest, and then he overwhelms them with volume. But I saw him get hit with a couple overhand rights, specifically in the 12th, where he got buzzed a little bit and then kind of had to work his way out of it. That I'm just like, he wants Teofimo Lopez. That's a punch you can't get hit with. And he got hit with 5 of them. And he's just lucky that, he wasn't facing someone the caliber of Teofimo Lopez, someone with that power, someone could set it up. Because if he's being aggressive offensively and really coasting through a fight, like being a dominant performance, it was good by him. And you get caught with these every other round when someone's a little more talented and they're bringing it to you. So now you're defensive, like you're moving on the back foot. And then how many times you're going to get caught with this against Teofimo? He hits you 6 of these. It's night. So Barboza has some work to do. I love the crowd. That's one thing that stood out to me. He brought some fans out. I was like, cool, he can sell in SoCal. That's good. That bodes well for him. And if they want to do Teofimo next or whoever it may be, he got a headlining fight under his belt, building a little name. He can get bigger fights. I still think he's a fight or two away from a title shot, even though he wants one right now. But yeah, that's my biggest thing. I was like, I expected him to win. But man, you take a lot of punches, and that's not good for who's at 140 at the top, and then the people coming. Because I love Ramirez, I love Proigres, like great fighters, right? Zepeda, great fighters. They are nothing compared to what's coming, and we'll talk about Saturday here in a second.
Yeah.
But like with Teofimo being there and everyone else coming, you can't get hit with those punches. You just can't.
I thought Zorrilla was actually having moments throughout the fight. I was watching it live, and he had enough pop to make Barboza hesitant enough to not really go for it. I mean, I think Barboza like looked for openings, but I think he felt the power and he felt okay. So like this guy isn't really. I think correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Zorilla maybe in the last round, I think he just went for it.
Yep.
Like the last couple, like 10 seconds, I believe, when the clapper went off, he literally went for it because I remember the commentators like, "Oh my god, he's going for it," like, and I think that's what Barboza was being hesitant on the last, few rounds of that fight because this guy, he's kind of he was kind of unpredictable in a sense. But I agree. I think Barboza still, he did win in a decisive manner. It was just one of those opponents that was still looming with that danger, regardless if the scorecards tell you one thing or another. Mike, what'd you think? What'd you think about Barboza's win?
Kind of like Cal said, he does get hit too much. And in the last round, like you touched on, Zorilla did kind of tag him. All he had to do was stay on his feet. And I think we all thought Barboza, had won it. Be interesting to see him moving up. Like, he was up there with pretty much the mandatory along with Jack Catterall. I was in Vegas for the Jose Mourinho, he's a footballer. Ramirez and Josh Taylor fight. And I was with Jack Catterall and they saw each other. And they kind of said, if Josh Taylor, becomes undisputed and drops the title, it's probably going to be me and you, and they were, kind of professional about it, shook hands and was kind of like, see you down the line. So it was interesting that Barboza decided to take this because, I thought he was already there. His next fight probably would have been for that because it looks like Josh Taylor's gradually dropping the belts one by one. So, Cal kind of summed it up really. Barboza is good, but just gets hit a little bit too much.
Yeah, I agree. I think, like before this fight, and Kel, tell us if you agree or not, but before Saturday or Friday night, I was very because if you look at Barboza's record, obviously he's closer to 30 fights, 30 wins essentially than he is to like 20 or whatever. And I thought, man, like he has all those wins and he's undefeated, and it still seems like he's a little bit of ways from a title shot or one of those significant names at 140 pounds. I was like, what's going on here? Is he just kind of like stuck between a rock and a hard place? Is everybody else just, a little bit ahead of him in that regard? Maybe now I see why, in a sense. Like I still think Barboza is going to get a title shot, and there's a chance that he wins a title, obviously. But in that fight against Zorilla, he did, like you said, he got hit a lot. He did. He won the fight, but he did get hit. And with somebody like Teofimo Lopez, who's already a big 135 pounder, he probably should have left 135 pounds, probably before the Lomachenko fight. But he wanted that Lomachenko fight. He wanted that recognition, and it put him in a different stratosphere in terms of marketability and all that. But with Barboza obviously getting the victory, he stays in that conversation to get one of those significant names. But I mean, Kel, if who's the most likely or realistic opponent that you think as a fan that would be next for somebody like Barboza?
I mean, honestly, I think that we get the Josh Taylor Catterall rematch, right? However it may go. And I think it'll be for those two belts that Taylor still has. If Taylor wins, that effectively knocks Catterall down and out of the rankings. So a fight, if they just let it play out, a fight between Teofimo and Barboza would then be for the vacant title. I believe because Barboza's there, and then I'm sure Top Rank could petition to have Teofimo be the other guy. And they'll say, yes, he's deserving of that ranking, right? With Catterall losing. So Teofimo would take that spot. And that would probably be the title match as it is now set up. And all it takes is Top Rank waiting it out and waiting for that. Because if Josh Taylor wins, cool, that belt is dropping. If Catterall wins, like many of us thought he did on the last fight, Catterall has 2 titles. And then Barboza's still looking at, okay, I'm the number 1 contender. I'm now the mandatory. I'm going against Catterall, and that was for 2 belts. Right. And then that gives, of course, another working relationship between Catterall and Top Rank, which would make 3 straight fights. him versus a top ranked guy. So why not make it 4 if you want Teofimo after that? So you have this pecking order of it's either Barboza and Teofimo next, or it's Barboza and Catterall with Teofimo waiting, and then making sure his status in that meantime. And this is so important, and this is why 140 is very different than other divisions. The turnover there is like none other. People seem to go from 135 to 147 quick, right?
Right.
So as you're waiting for a title shot, the reason why we've seen 2 undisputeds in this weight class is because as you're waiting for your title shot, you can honestly climb the rankings in a different on the WBC as you're waiting for the WBO, right? If you have a deal in your promotional camp. So we see that with, all right, Teofimo, I think just missed out. Jose Ramirez petitioned. Teofimo got knocked down to 3. Jose Ramirez is going to get this title shot, right? Versus Zepeda, I believe, coming up. Teofimo would then be ranked number 1 contender for those 2. So all you think he has to do is take another fight, become number 1 in the 4th, what was probably IBF or something, or number 2, and just climb that ranking. Like, who's number 2 over there? Let me beat them. Because he just wants to be positioned number 2 there, number 1 WBC, and then go fight Barboza Catterall winner. And then next thing you know, the guy's in line for every single title as a mandatory. So like 140, that's how we see Bud Crawford face all of these guys as you go through. Taylor won the tournament, obviously, but then signs with Top Rank, and it's like, yeah, cool, like, let's get this on. It seems so easy to do at 140 because people leave so quick. So now I think Barboza, if he wants that shot, it's going to be tough, but he'll have that shot next. And no matter who it's against, because I think the Teofimo fight, again, if Taylor wins and vacates, Catterall's out of the picture because you slice it however you want. 2 straight losses, you're not going to be fighting for a title again. 2 straight title losses, like, so both of those belts will be vacated. Regis probably gets one, and then Barboza Teofimo will fight for the other.
Cal, who do you think Barboza's, because we were talking about just before we came on air, or actually now, was it before we came on air? Yeah, maybe it was, I think it was on when we came on air. Your first fight was Pacquiao Marquez.
Yep.
And we know the old saying, styles make fights, and sometimes you just have that one guy in your career. Or we talk about Victor Ortiz and Andre Berto fighting multiple times. There's just that one guy who you can fight 1,000 times, and there's always going to be action. It's just like, oh man, that guy has my number, and I have his number. Do you think there's anybody like that? If you had to, based on your knowledge of the game, that could be that opponent across from Barboza?
It's crazy. I never believed in like styles make fights. I've never done that.
Right? Why not?
Like,
Why not?
Because I wholeheartedly think it is a mental thing going into that fight. People say styles make fights. I say talent trumps all. So styles make fights because I see fighters going in there against someone they believe they're on equal level with. They can relax and they go for it, right? But if you put that same fighter in with someone who is perceived and maybe they even know is better than them, then you say, hey, why are they not doing the same things? Why are they not as exciting? Why are they defensive this fight? It's because they know they're not as good and they're worrying, they're thinking, they can't be loose. So styles make fights, yeah, when 2 fighters are equal. So we've seen this. I mean, we just saw Tyson Fury, right? Like Dillian White is great. He's, he stands toe-to-toe with Povetkin. It does all these things. Like, the last couple fights were exciting, right? It's amazing. Why didn't he do any of that against Tyson Fury? Why wasn't he the body snatcher? Because he knew Tyson Fury was a different level than him. He couldn't be relaxed. You can't throw hands when you know someone is better than you, right? So they're like, Teofimo Lopez, he's going to go in there and knock out Lomachenko. He's going to go wild. No, why didn't he fight against Loma like he fought maybe against Kambosos, right? It's because Loma, he had that respect. They're equal. So now it's like, okay, it's the chess match and all this stuff. He's loose. He wins that fight. And now the opposite is Kambosos is below him and he fought like a madman. Right. And like he didn't fight smart, right? So like it's just the hubris of talent could be great for one side and then just completely just draining for the other. So Barboza, to me, needs someone where he can go in there and say, you know what, I can beat this guy with my best style. Like if Jose Ramirez was to lose again in any fashion, him and Barboza would be great dance partners.
Right.
Because right now I think Barboza looks at him and be like, he's a little bit better than me. Oh, this is for a title. There's a lot of pressure there. There's a lot of like other stuff. If those two were just a fight, Jose Ramirez doesn't have a title, or he doesn't even have to lose again. Say he didn't have a title and they had paired those two up next. Yeah, then I think we see like Barboza be loose, calm. Like I just saw him lose to Taylor. I could go in there. I can do that. And then that'd make like a great stylistic fight, right? Like that's always the thing. Like Pacquiao was amazing. Marquez never thought he was better than him. They went into that first fight. Marquez gets dropped, 3 times? The first round, Marquez was like, oh, I beat him in damn near 9 of the other rounds.
Yeah.
And he was never scared of him again. And they're just like, oh, styles make fights. Like, yeah, the confidence he had made fights. Tyson Fury had no business beating Deontay Wilder that first fight. He wasn't in shape. But whatever happened in that 12th round, taking Deontay Wilder's best punch, getting up, and then Tyson Fury never looked back. And then he was just like, no, I could take this. And this guy's not on my level because I took his best and he had nothing else for me. I'm a bully him. So like it's all about the level perceived in these fights. So with styles make fights, you just need to pair someone on their stylistic level. Devin Haney's fights have been boring as hell. Let's just be honest.
Right.
He hasn't fought nobody his level. He's that good. Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia go in there. I think we're going to see a different Devin Haney. Devin Haney against Gervonta Davis. I think we're going to see a different Devin Haney. Because when you get in there with someone your level, then you start to be loose. You're on autopilot. That's really what it is. You're not thinking. You're just reacting. When someone is above you, you're scared. You're playing the chess match. You don't want to get knocked out. Someone's below you. Your game plan's all weird, and you're not fighting like you should fight. You got to get evenly matched fights. So that's my biggest thing. Like talent trumps all. As long as you match the talent, and for Barboza, I think that'd be a good fight. It's weird because now we're seeing 140 still kind of in flux. So I still don't like Zepeda would have been a great fight for him because Zepeda worked his way back up and like all this. That's a good confidence. Like, oh, I could beat this guy. Oh, he could be like that was equal. That would be a great fight. So I think those two guys are a great fight for him. I just think, especially with the showcase fight for Tio, I think the looming specter of Tio is too big for a lot of people in this division. I think they'll lose before they step in the ring. Because when Teofimo is right, it's much like facing Gervonta Davis. It's much like facing Ryan Garcia, where you talk all you want during the week. When you get in there, there's no game plan. You don't even look like yourself because they hit you once and you're like, damn, this is the real deal. Like they are what everyone says they are. And then you can't do anything about it except for survive.
I remember with the Teofimo Lopez when he lost to Kambosos, the commentary team, I think it was a top rank commentary team. I know Christina Poncher brought it up and some others. But they had mentioned that Teofimo Lopez, comparing his training camp to the Lomachenko fight, he didn't have like a nutritionist. He didn't have the same people that he had for the Lomachenko fight to prepare for that fight. He didn't have that same team.
Not at all.
They thought, did that affect the way he fought and why he lost?
George Kambosos is a good fighter, right? We were talking about George when me and Mike were next to each other, and him possibly losing a fight even before he got to like that spot, right? But he's a good fighter. He ran into the perfect storm of events to beat Teofimo Lopez. His personal life was a little rocky. It was reported that, he was going through some stuff personally. He had COVID, postponing the first fight. Don't get me wrong. And Triller mishandled a lot. They didn't want to compete against a Mayweather exhibition. So they moved it off of June 6th when it was originally scheduled, if people remember that. So they moved from June 6th. They were going to do June 19th. About June 10th, Teofimo catches COVID. Then you postponed it another 2 months. And he's an asthmatic, by the way. So COVID hit him pretty damn hard. Then you postpone it again. It's supposed to be in September. No, can't go in September because the deal wasn't signed by August something or another. There's not enough time to promote. Then they push it back to November. Then they don't have the money to pay anybody. And so they push it back to November 13th, try to pair it with a versus, move from MSG to Barclays. And at this point, Teofimo's been cutting weight. They cut down all this stuff. They're like, nope, we're not doing that card. So Teofimo's like, all right, damn, I got a balloon up with no nutritious, no nothing. Already a division hard for him to make. All right, well, I got 3 weeks to either maintain my weight or balloon up and cut again. In which, okay, cool. He ballooned up, cut again, looked super drained. Oh, and by the way, somewhere along the way, I don't know, people suspect that was when he was doing the stupid body shot challenge with Thor or whatever. But he ends up with like a collapsed lung or something crazy, or his esophagus. Ended up with like a hole in his esophagus, and then could barely breathe, getting no oxygen. So the weight cut is hell. He makes the weight cut anyway, off of just pure sweating stuff out because the guy can't run. And then the whole fight week is like, yeah, I'm knocking Kambosos out in one. Lo and behold, he fought like that, and the game plan was that way because he knew I can't breathe. I can't go 12. So if I don't knock him out in the first 1, 2, 3 rounds, I'm probably going to lose this fight. The fact that he went the distance and knocked Kambosos down in the 10th tells you all you need to know about Teofimo Lopez, because man had one lug, couldn't breathe, had a horrible camp where he had to cut weight 3 times in 6 weeks, and still went in there. And I damn near had it a draw. He could have won, arguably, because they gave it 10-9 round in the first when he got knocked down. They said he still won that round. The judges did. So if you do that and then he gets the 10-8 later on in the fight, I had it 6 rounds to 6. That would give him the win. So the split decision loss, I was like, all right, cool. I understand it. Someone went a different way. But when you look at that and how close that fight still is, people give Teal like a lot of shit about that fight and like dump on him. That was a close fight for like everything concerned. Like, yeah, he came out in the first round, got dropped. It took him like 3 or 4 rounds to like really figure it out. And then he started doing very well to the point where he had Kambosos on the brink of stopping him in the 10th, but had no air and lung power to chase him around and finish him off. So that fight, if Teal wins the 12th, probably wins the fight in that matter. Like, he had no gas for the 12th. Kambosos wins it. But to show that against someone who's gone the distance with Devin Haney, where you almost stopped him anyway, and a guy that tough, Teofimo is very, very good. So if he doesn't have all of that going against him, it's very hard to beat that man. Beating Lomachenko is no fluke.
Right.
None. Standing toe-to-toe with Vasily Lomachenko. I love this 4 Prince era and what everyone is and the talent level there. I'm not sure if I favor any of those guys against Lomachenko.
Right.
I don't. Like, you tell me you put Tank in the ring against Lomachenko, he's the favorite. Why? Because he gave away 7 rounds to Mario Barrios.
Right.
So what is he going to do against Lomachenko if he doesn't land a knockout punch? You're going to get into 10th and start sweating. Yeah. Mayweather's going to be there pleading with him, throw a jab in the corner, right? Like, what Devin Haney's great and he's super technical. He has no power. So is he backing up Lomachenko? Are you going to out technique the Matrix?
Yeah.
So that gets a little weird too, right? Like, Ryan Garcia is really good, but he pulls back straight with his jaw. How did that work for Luke Campbell against Lomachenko, right? Like, he survived, but it wasn't very good. That's people what they do when they leave their face open or drop their right hand or close their eyes against Lomachenko when throwing a punch. None of these guys are favorites against Loma. Teal beat him straight up. So Teofimo Lopez, again, people judge careers. Social media makes like the career vacuum so tight. People judge careers. Like, bro, he's 24. Yeah. This is not a sport for people to be undefeated at all. That's not boxing. Mayweather's an anomaly. This is not a sport for anyone to be undefeated. That's a hoax. It's what you can collect in between your losses that count. That's what makes people great. Ali lost a couple times. What do you do when you're on your streaks? Sugar Ray Robinson lost. One of my favorite fighters. What do you do? Ray Leonard lost. What do you do in between those? What are your wins? How many belts can you collect? That's what makes you great. Teal's already undisputed. Could go for a second division, undisputed at 140. Then at 147, even if he splits with half the great people up there, gives him the career of, I don't know, Oscar De La Hoya. Like, that guy's pretty damn good. He has a statue. So, like, this is one of those things. Like, at 24, the man has held every belt there is. You argue what you want with the WBC. Cool, take that away if you want. He has 3 of them. But sure, whatever. Take that away if you don't want to count that. He's held 3 belts at 24 years old and is in a new division. Name one of your greats that did that. So, like, these kids are doing things that are astronomically good. If they fight each other and lose, so what? It's not the end of the career. If someone gets upset, so what? Teofimo can win the next 5 years straight. He beats Devin. He beats Tank. Hypothetically, the guy's the greatest of this generation.
Right.
No one cares about that loss. People know who Pacquiao lost to the first time, second, like, Morales is great. But, like, like, Pacquiao took losses. Doesn't matter. He was damn near the fighter of the decade. People put his resume over Floyd's. Like, losses don't matter in this sport. It's how great are your wins, not what your losses are. So I think Tio will be fine. I think he's going to be great. I've rambled on a million subjects, and I know Mike has sort of talk, but like, yeah, that just always like, just, it bothers me with this. It's like, yeah, I think that Barboza is good and all this stuff, but this for the very first time in a long time, since the 80s, since the Four Kings, boxing's dominated by people 23 to 28. There's young stars in this sport. Other sports are dying for young stars. It's MLB All-Star Weekend. Ask them how much they want young stars, like to be transcended, to have 10 million followers like Ryan Garcia. Like, this sport has that. And people are just finding ways to like chip at it and bring it down. It's like, who cares about wins and losses? Let's see them fight each other. Let's see great fights. And at the end of the day, they're all going to be Hall of Famers.
Right. Yeah. And it only helps the sport going forward. You know, you're right. You're totally right. Moving on that card in the co-main event, Raymond Murataya, I think I said that right, remains undefeated at 15-0 with an 8-round unanimous decision win over Jair Valtierra. I think I said that right. Murataya had scores of 80-71 3 separate times. What do you think about the co-main event, Kel?
Mike was next to me. We enjoyed that fight, Mike. No, I think Murataya has a lot of skills. 135 is an odd place right now. Like, again, he's good, and it's a good problem to have. There's so much talent there. I think he's a guy where right place, right time, he could be a title holder. And now we're looking at the place where he's in a perfect position for his career to max out whatever his potential is. Because much like 140, we have somebody with all the belts. Devin Haney's not going to be stupid. He's going to vacate when it's time to vacate, unless the money is not there. And it seems like all the power and the money players are going up to 140. I highly doubt he goes back to the zone, if that's where he goes after this 3-fight deal. Maybe he likes Bob Arum. Maybe he likes fighting on ESPN. Who knows? But I doubt he goes back to the zone with the lightweight titles.
Right.
I think when he goes back at the end of his 3-fight deal, it's to move up to 140 and force the mandatory wherever that is, because you become automatic mandatory, just start belt collecting at 140. So I think a guy like Murataya is in a perfect spot, because now you have a chance of capturing a vacated belt against the next guy underneath. And then now you're going to fight another champion at 135. So maybe you get a Lomachenko, who's never moving up higher than that, fight around 135. Maybe you fight a guy like Shakur Stevenson if he just wants to come up and snatch a belt from 135 in his pursuit of becoming undisputed at 130. Kelvin Davis, incredible. Or excuse me, Keyshawn.
Right.
Keyshawn Davis, incredible at 135. He's itching to get into like a title fight. That's an incredible matchup between those two. What if one can go grab a belt and then the other one grab a belt? Showtime has great talent at 135. So like now we're in a spot where I love when belts are vacated, because it forces promotions to work together. Yeah. Because it's just like, oh, number 1 and number 2, like, what are you going to do? They're mandated. So we're going to get 8 mandated fights. Work this out. Yeah. Instead of like different sides of the street type thing. So it opens up to some fresh matchups. I think he put his name in that conversation with this win.
Mike, what did you think about the win?
Good win. You know, he's another product of the Robert Garcia Boxing Academy in Riverside. So that just tells you, how good he is. And it was good to see him and his brother. They kind of broke out during COVID on those, behind the scenes top rank shows. And like either him or his brother, one of them's like a teacher and stuff like that. So they did really well. Some guys, COVID did them well. They were definitely a pair that did. And it's just good to see what he's done. Like so far, he seems to be getting better and better. He picks his shots better. He was very calm. Me and Kel said this because there was at one point where he had him hurt. And I was like, okay, he's going to jump on him now. Rightly or wrongly, he took his time, didn't rush it, and then, picked his shots, didn't manage to get rid of him. But I thought it was very mature of him. He didn't just go in there, like, okay, he's hurt. throw a bunch, hooks and uppercuts and stuff, tire himself out, and then, he's done for the rest of the fight. So I thought that was very good of him. And kind of Kel summed it up really. It's a difficult division. A lot of big names in there, some really, really good fights, and he's got a fan-pleasing style, I thought. Even though he didn't get rid of this guy, he's still, heavy-handed, and obviously, we love to watch guys like that.
Absolutely. Also in the card, Stephen Shaw, another undefeated fighter, gets the first round KO, makes it a quick night over Bernardo Marquez. Marquez was down 3 times in that first round, which obviously ended conclusively. Kel, what did you think about that first round KO?
Shaw looks good. I mean, that's, again, young heavyweight talent. Clutch. Richard Torres Jr. also on this card.
Right.
Amazing stash. That was stopped a little too early. But that stash deserves an award of its own. But no, you see this talent, and to me, and granted, yes, full disclosure, obviously work for ESPN, but I enjoy the talent ESPN builds underneath. And I always said that it's hard to top rank in terms of building stars and getting prospects and getting your career off the ground. They do an amazing job with that stable.
They're probably the best in the business at it.
I think so. Yeah, and then,
so.
But second contracts, we can debate that. If you sign your second contract, you want to be a champion. Pay-per-view money, I don't know. Listen, people leave for a reason sometimes, so not everybody's happy. But what keeps them around and what kept Bob around is his ability to find new fighters and build that early on legacy, right? Like what he did for Mayweather, what he did just throughout the years, like De La Hoya's fight. He can fight and find people young and cultivate their careers, make them stars. Now, when you are a star, we'll see if the money is there for you. But we've seen the money can be there for guys like Tyson Fury, so on and so forth. But what they did for, Crawford and everyone else, you build a good resume under Top Rank. So it's not surprising to me to see these young fighters really flock there, because you're going to have other young fighters to test yourself against. And they're going to build you right in between then. I mean, Shaw didn't fight a world beater, but he handled business on his end. And when it's time to get that step up and to get that challenge, there's plenty of people there for you to test yourself against.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And like you mentioned, Richard Torres was also on the card, the Olympian. He gets the second professional win of his career with the first round knockout as well. So back to back over Roberto Zavala Jr.,
he's not 6'3".
Torres?
Yeah.
Oh, is that a marketing tactic?
He said 6'3", and he came walking out, and I'm stood kind of like near him, and I'm like, this guy's not 6'3". He's about as much 6'3" as Andy Ruiz is 6'3".
Wow, that's a marketing tactic.
Yeah.
Huh? Oh, okay. Hey, man, we've seen it before. We act like we're surprised, but it happens, especially when you're on a big, broadcast platform like that. It happened. It's like Kel does also with the Corner Podcast, professional wrestling.
Yeah.
Professional wrestling, they're known for that. Like there was a time where they didn't reportedly Vince McMahon didn't want to say we're not going to give your actual weight. You weigh 230 pounds, but you're 5'8" or something like that. Yep. It's a marketing tactic, and it works. It could work because people are like, oh man, it's like, I mean, Kel, you met Mike at the fights, and Mike's a big guy. He's like 6'3", 6'4" ish.
Yep.
I'm 6'7", so I'm bigger than him. So, we walk around together and people are like, these guys are ridiculous. It's wild.
Guys are the Twin Towers around here.
Lex said that on Saturday.
Yeah, we saw Alexis Rocha backstage after the fight. And he's been on the show a couple of times. We've seen him. He's a really cool guy. And then he was like, man, I always forget how fucking tall you guys are. So
I'm 6 foot. I'll feel short. I feel like Tank Davis walking around you guys.
Exactly. But like I said, Richard Torres gets the first round KO. Floyd Diaz remains undefeated. A lot of undefeated records on this card. Floyd Diaz gets the third round KO over Pedro Salome. And Austin Brooks, 7-0, gets the 4-round unanimous decision win over Victor Saravia, who takes the third professional loss of his career. Overall, what'd you think about that whole entire event in Temecula in wine country, Kel?
No, I thought the venue was cool. I liked the venue. The crowd was good. It's only a 2,500 seater, I believe. but it's good to get someone from the area out there. Eventually, I'm sure that'll be the home for Richard Torres as he makes his ascent and when he starts headlining fights. I think they'll put him there because it's a venue where it's close enough to LA to travel down. You get a strong community there backing him. They've now seen him. They'll put him under other guys from their area. And then it's a venue where it looks really big in terms of the crowd around. There's not too many empty seats, right? Like it's built so the noise, when people cheered, you heard it.
Right.
Like the acoustics in there are great for 2,500 people. So it's one of those things where it's like, it'll be good for a fighter like him. Or I like this venue a little bit better than where Michaela Mayer fought last time as
Costa
well.
Mesa?
Yeah, Costa Mesa. Like, I think this venue is a little bit better than that. The hotel is amazing. Just the facilities to be able to house all those people right there on site. Nothing but kudos to them for running this venue. And I thought the fight in August was going to be there. Yeah. It is not. Mike let me know that there's two different Pachangas. So, I would have went to the wrong place. I'm like, Mike, where are you at? And then he would be like, hey, I'm hanging out in San Diego.
Oh, yeah, we did that because the last Chocolatito fight was at the Pachanga Arena in the city of San Diego, which is like another hour and like 15 past Temecula, California, where the top ranked card was at. And I remember until maybe like the week before, Mike was like, hey, this is the Pachanga Arena in San Diego, not Temecula. I was like, damn, it is. I was like, we have to drive further now. So, there's a difference.
Mike is teaching us all.
He really is, yeah.
Geography teacher on the side.
He keeps eyes on the details.
The guy from the UK is giving out directions.
That's true. He's not wrong about that.
Yeah, that's all bad.
Also, this past Saturday, the 16th of July, from the Crypto.com Arena, formerly the Staples Center in downtown Los Angeles on DAZN, Ryan Garcia also remains undefeated at 23-0 with the 6-round knockout over Javier Fortuna. Fortuna was down in rounds 4, 5, and eventually the conclusive 6th round. Golden Boy announced an audience paid tickets of about a little over 11,000, I think closer to 12, but about 11 and change. But overall, what do you think of Ryan's win, Kel?
Man, compared to expectations going in, I never understand how people are so down on Ryan Garcia. I'll never understand it. His boxing skills and what's already on his resume, beyond the YouTube or the Instagram stuff, the social media, the followers, the TikTok, the modeling, his boxing skills speak for themselves. He has the second best win out of any of these young fighters. And him stopping someone that not even Loma could stop, right? Like you're looking at that fight and his resume doing these things, this is just another cherry on top for me. Like I expected this, but people thought he was going to get tested in this fight. This was a fight he was supposed to have last summer, where people are like, man, this is a step up fight for him. Then we saw Fortuna lose last summer. But like the Luke Campbell stoppage and him being able to do that to Luke and looking better against Luke than Loma looked. And that body punch is insane. Like, oh, it's a lucky body punch. Yeah. Lo and behold, he just hit Fortuna with the same punch. Fortuna goes down. Yeah. Then you're like, oh, you think the left hand, the left lead hook to the face is the only thing he has because he's lightning quick? No, you'll fake that and hit you in the body with the same left hand. Oh, and by the way, this fight, shout out to Goosen in his corner, new trainer. Yeah. Oh, let's add another trick to the book. This left hand is pretty strong. Let's throw a straight jab with it. So we're keeping you getting points as you're looking for the check hook and everything else. Oh, and by the way, if you get hit with that right hand as a second follow-up, it's pretty damn good too. So Ryan Garcia's deficiencies to me are on defense, but offensively, if you want to stand and bang, like this kid is not one to do, because if you want to trade him, he'll beat you to the punch. So a guy like Gervonta Davis, understand pure power is excellent. Right. And that guy is also quick. I don't think he's faster than Ryan. And one thing with Ryan, we can say whatever we want. I've seen him take a punch. I've seen him hit the deck, get back up, and knock somebody out. I haven't seen Tank take a punch yet. I've seen Leo Santa Cruz take 6 rounds from him. I've seen Mario Barrios take 7. I've seen, the only fight I saw him box was against Isaac Cruz. And that's because he broke his hand early and he was forced to box because he knew he wasn't going to knock him out. That's the only fight he didn't give up multiple rounds before he knocked someone out. Right? Gamboa had one leg and damn near went the distance, right? So Tank, for as good as he is, takes his foot off the gas pedal, pun intended, a lot. So it's one of those things where Ryan Garcia is favorable to a lot of people. Ryan Garcia is favorable to Devin Haney, 3-3 in the amateurs. Like this guy he's not Jake Paul. Mm-hmm. He wasn't a social media guy who just started fighting, right? He's not that. Like he went through the amateurs. Like he's the real deal. Him and Devin Haney splitting is not a farce. And if you ask me, who's the better amateur transition to a pro game and pro style, I say Ryan Garcia. Because Devin Haney still hasn't found out how to sit down on his punches. It's great.
But Devin Haney is undisputed, right?
Listen, I have no ill will towards George Kambosos.
Yeah.
But you beat who you beat. But if you tell me Gervonta Davis doesn't knock out Kambosos, are we real? Right? Like if anyone else who just takes that amount of money to fight Kambosos wins that belt. Hence, Devin Haney took that amount of money to fight Kambosos because he knew, like, listen, this is supposed to be Loma. I'm not even supposed to be undisputed right now. So let me take this chance and get this accolade. And his team is very smart, and they did a great job with taking their payday. And then now he holds all the cards in that situation. But it's one of those things where you look at the landscape of things, and Ryan Garcia is up there. If it wasn't for Teofimo Lopez beating Lomachenko, Ryan Garcia would have the best win in the division. Luke Campbell's better win than anyone Tank has faced.
I can agree with that, I think. Yeah.
Like at the time, like Luke only lost to Lomachenko. The guy,
and he's an Olympian too.
Gold medalist.
Yeah, gold medalist. Yeah.
He's pretty damn good. Luke Campbell's not bad. Right. And Ryan went and stopped him. So Devin Kambosos is cool. He's not an Olympic gold medalist. Luke Campbell beats George Kambosos, FYI, if those two were to fight. They just happen to not fight. And Kambosos caught the perfect storm, which is cool. But yeah, like I don't Devin Haney's best win was Devin Haney's best win. It ain't Luke Campbell level. So it is damn sure not Loma level.
Yeah.
So I think Ryan is the second best win amongst all those guys. And he's not going in there and decisioning these guys. He's knocking people out.
Right. But
to go ran around the ring. Ryan hit him once in the second round. He felt the power. He was like, no more of this. And he circled the ring and ran and was like, I'll lose my decision. Y'all just going to have to talk bad about me. I'm taking my payday and I am not ending up on a highlight reel. And now he's like, oh, you know what? That looks pretty damn good. Like, when you look at this fight, Fortuna's like, I probably should have fought like that guy. Because Ryan is really, really good. And above all else, like he's cool at 135. We've seen him at 140. This is where he gets scary, right? The past two fights at 140. The man is like 5'11".
Yeah, he's big.
5'11 and a half at these weights. Everyone else is like 5'8", 5'9". Tank is
like 5'5", maybe?
5'5"? Like he's a generous 5'7". We're talking about like, Tank 5'7".
He's Richard Torres 6'3".
Yeah, exactly. So like these guys aren't going to fill out like Ryan's going to fill out. This is like Ryan's baby body still. Like he's going to be a whole different guy in 7 years, 8 years, much like we saw with Canelo Alvarez when he filled out. So Ryan stands next to Canelo. You're like, damn, this kid is really tall. Canelo's like 5'8", 5'9". Like Ryan is a whole head above Canelo Alvarez. So you look at like his frame and everything. This is just the beginning for this kid. So I love the performance. I think he did exactly what he needed to do. And now the fun part begins. As much as I love the fights, I love the trash talk. I love the what ifs in between. I love when someone forces the issue and really puts a spotlight on these promoters and on these networks to get fights done. Mm-hmm. And now we see Ryan in the perfect position. And credit to Oscar De La Hoya. He's promoting like he got nothing to lose. And guess what? The man got nothing to lose. He lost Canelo. Like as soon as you lose Canelo, he's like, yo, I'm playing with house money at this point. I got nothing to lose. So he's really pushing to get that fight made. And there's avenues. Like I have the rankings up right now. WBA has no one rated in the number one spot because Gervonta Davis is a co-champion, right, with Devin Haney. So I spoke to Oscar. He's going to try to get the WBA to move Ryan Garcia from 6 to 1 based on this last fight and petitioned them to do so, which I don't see why they wouldn't. And then he gets his choice of which champion he wants to become mandatory for. And it can either be Devin Haney or it can be Gervonta Davis. I think we all know who he's going to petition to be number one contender for.
Yeah, absolutely. Mike, what'd you think about Ryan's knockout, which all three of us were in the arena watching that fight live. But Mike, what'd you think?
I thought he did. You know, it's a good performance from him. Like we said, we kind of now he has a bit more of a jab. He's still kind of the same. Like I always say, he's like a lightweight Deontay Wilder in the fact that like he's not like your usual boxer, kind of like reaches out with that jab, make sure that you're in range, and then okay, here comes a big backhand or that hook or the body shot. You know, he's kind of just the jab's just there, kind of like it's quick. Just tries to make sure that you're in range, make sure that you're like there, ready for him to hit, and then he just lands something heavy. You know, he's not really like your consummate boxer. He's very flat-footed because he's all about power. He's literally all about generating as much power as he can. He's kind of selective with his shots. He actually is pretty good with his power shots. You know, he does land, it seems like, a lot of them. But yeah, you know, I think for me, if I was him, like a little bit less talking, because people were kind of just getting sick of him calling people out, never fights them. Obviously, he had the issues with his mental health, and then kind of disappeared for a period of time. Now he looks like he's in a good place, comes back. But if you're going to call these people out, kind of check beforehand that you can actually fight them, because a lot of the fans, just because he's been doing it for so long, are just not like, okay, here he goes again, like just hot air. He's going to call out Gervonta Davis, and he's going to fight, you know, some minuscule guy, you know, in the 135 or a 140, someone we don't even know. Because, you know, that just turns people off. You know, he's got like a huge following, and I think now hopefully is the time that we'll see him. You know, Fortuna was a decent level opponent. Now, hopefully we get someone like a Davis. I would probably imagine Jojo Diaz, just because it's easier to make, both with Golden Boy. And obviously, you got the problem with DAZN, Showtime, Espinoza, the Weasel, as everyone says. You know, it doesn't want to work with anybody, doesn't want to share his toys. So I think we'll probably see, unfortunately, Jojo Diaz. He just needs to deal with those legal issues that he has. And then hopefully, you know, we get a name like that. I'd be happy with Jojo, Devin, Gervonta Davis. Oh, who's the other one that we were saying yesterday, Danny? Who was the other one?
It'll come to us because we recorded a show inside the crypto.com arena after the fight. So we have a bonus show that's up that was posted yesterday that we just focused on the immediate reaction on Ryan Garcia's win. But Kel, you know, do you think
I actually think, real quick, I think the Tank fight is easier to make than you may think. I think we see Tank Davis now a promotional free agent. I don't think he resigns with Mayweather Promotions.
Really? You don't think? I think he does. I think he does.
No, I think he sees what Devin Haney has done with Devin Haney Promotions. I think he sees what Canelo has done. I think he says, I sell more pay-per-views than Devin Haney, who sells none, because I don't think he's been on pay-per-view platform. Canelo Alvarez, you'd be like, you're all right, Canelo's Canelo, but I'm probably like the second biggest pay-per-view star right now when the heavyweights aren't fighting, right? So I think he says, no. Al Heyman's been very good to Floyd Mayweather. I think Gervonta says, Floyd, you can be my advisor as Heyman is to you.
Right.
But it's time for whatever he wants to name it, Tank Promotions or whatever it may be. And I think as a promoter, I think he goes into business himself so he can do these side deals as long as someone has a pay-per-view outlet without leaving Mayweather and Ellerby and everyone out to dry, right? Because you're, as an advisor, you still get your cut. So he's not like leaving them in an advisory sense, because Floyd never left Al Heyman as an advisory sense. Like
Right.
Al was getting his money off of Floyd, right? But
Yeah.
it's one of those things where Floyd was Mayweather Promotions, and Floyd and Tank being under his arm and his wing understands that. Like, Tank's not always going to be Mayweather Promotions. Mayweather wasn't always Top Rank Promotions. This was the exact time in terms of popularity, pay-per-view sales. I'd argue Tank is ahead of where Mayweather was when he was complaining about Top Rank and Split.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the exact time in the career as they built him for Tank to split. Except I think he does give him like an advisory cut. But we could see Tank be a mercenary in boxing. All right, let's do pay-per-view. What outlet's going to pay the most? And if it's Showtime,
Highest bidder.
yeah. If it's Showtime, Steven, show the money. If Al Heyman gets a bag from Fox, let's do Fox pay-per-view, and do it under PBC and break my ties with Showtime. I think if DAZN, who now has a pay-per-view platform, wants to give him $40 million guaranteed to fight a Devin Haney or Ryan Garcia, and he gets 40 and Ryan gets 25 or 30, I think Tank says, let's do that. I don't think he signs any major deals, but I think we're going to see Tank for hire going forward. And in the meantime, yeah, he still will fight on Showtime and fight the stable of fighters, whoever is out there, for him to fight under the Mayweather banner. But I think we definitely see the time where Tank can float if he wants to float. And it's to the point where the training wheels are off. Like, it's time, because one thing above all that Mayweather understands, and he's always understood this, is sooner or later fighting nobodies is going to mess up my money, and nothing messes up my money.
Right.
So Mayweather every 3 years fought somebody who was pretty damn good. Like that Corrales fight. Corrales was a world beater entering that fight. Mayweather was like, if I don't fight him, it's going to mess up my money.
Yeah.
So now it's time. And then he didn't fight again. And so who did he fight? What's the next, like 2 years later, 2.5, Chop Corley or something?
Yeah.
And then Chop was really good. And then it was like, well, no, beat the hell out of him. So my money is really good. And then next thing you know, it's like, all right, Top Rank, you mess up my money, I'm out, because De La Hoya is the next one to make me jump in money.
Yeah.
So I think this is that first time where it's like, oh, we need a big name so Tank could go in the next bracket of money. So I think Ryan Garcia is that perfect storm.
I hope so.
No, yeah.
And according to Steven Espinoza, Ryan Garcia doesn't have to fight on DAZN, but I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, I think it's just that's just promotional beef.
Yeah, I don't know Golden Boy's deal there, but
yeah.
Oscar wants to co-promote the pay-per-view. I mean,
I think that was just them going back and forth because they're promotional beef. But percentage-wise, Kel, what do you put on by the end of this year that we see a Tank Davis fight and a Ryan Garcia together in the ring by the end of the year?
No, I think we see it in the spring of next year.
So they're each going to have one more fight in between and then fight next year?
I'm not sure if Gervonta fights between here and there.
Really?
I honestly don't know. I think Gervonta is completely fine not fighting and figuring out what's his best move and waiting. Guy has a lot of money. People are like, oh, he only sold 200 pay-per-view or 200,000 pay-per-views. So you know how much pay-per-views cost? Like, I'm not a mathematician, but 200,000 times $70, and then you're fighting people who are maybe making $2 million. So you start slicing up that pie, and then you're looking, you're like, yo, that's a lot of money. Like you're making like $45 million off the pay-per-view. You're giving one guy $2 million. There's 43 million left to figure out what to do with. Like, Gervonta has enough money to sit and wait and let everything play out. And I think that's what he does. I think it forces Ryan to fight again and to keep chasing him. And that's one thing Mayweather knows. He's not dumb. And as an advisor, he says, much like Pacquiao, the longer you wait, people will complain, but the higher the build goes for it.
Right.
And they're not going to wait forever. But I think they're going to be like, let's milk this one more time. Because who's going to a fight in December? What pay-per-view is the fight? Like, Tank Davis, really? In December? Miami Beach ain't popping in December.
Yeah.
Like, you want to do that on like a big fight weekend where it's warm and you like SoCal, you like amazing sellout places. So I think we see that in the spring of next year. I think Jojo Diaz was a great name. I think Jojo is probably next for Ryan. And we see that, and Ryan say, "Oh, I want to fight Tank this December," and he's ducking me, and I told you. And it's Ryan versus JoJo in December
At 140 or 135?
Probably 140. I think they make JoJo come up.
Wow. Yeah.
Ryan holds the chips here, right? Like, so
Right.
It's not fluctuating his standings at 135. So what's the point in cutting down?
Right.
Tank would be 135 because he's a champion there, and you'd be the mandatory there, you know? So, if it's not for the belt, he's not going down to 135. Him and Haney, they want to fight for the belt, 135. Like, he would do that. Any other fight outside of that, he's at 140. So him versus JoJo at 140, we has a distinct advantage over JoJo. And then the entire fight week's predicated around, Tank is ducking me. And Tank's for Baltimore, man. He ain't gonna take kindly to that.
Yeah, he's not.
You call him a lot of stuff. You can't call him a punk.
Yeah.
And it's going to build really, really big. And I think that's where we go. I think Ryan has to stay active. Tank does not. Mayweather went on hiatuses for a year and a half, 2 year hiatus. Like, Mayweather was habitually retiring for 9 months and then coming back. Like, he'll let Gervonta and advise him, like, just wait a little more. Like, you think it's really high and there's a fever pitch for this? Let's milk it a little more.
Right.
Get that real.
If anybody knows, it's him.
He never fails. I mean, listen, his bank account says he's the right guy. And those boxing fans say, he fought everybody at the wrong time. His bank account says different. So I think you listen to the guy in that situation.
Kellen, they milk it to what? 500,000 pay-per-views?
You're going to think I'm crazy. I think if they fight in the beginning of next year, I think they do 800 plus.
Really?
If it's not behind the DAZN paywall, all right, not on DAZN. But if we get Showtime or Fox straight up normal pay-per-view, I think they do 800 plus. Yep. I think Ryan's star power is greater than a lot of people know, and Tank Davis is also known. They have two vastly different fan bases, which is always great.
Bring those together and boom.
And you're bringing two different fan bases together, right? Like, Jake Paul sells because social media and the young kids, like, TikTok's one hell of a gauge on like stuff. Like, now we launched Ringside TikTok like 3 months ago. Ryan crushes on Ringside TikTok. People don't understand, and Ryan's TikTok game is phenomenal. People don't understand that kids are used to paying for things. Our generation is not, right? Like, we had I don't know. We had LimeWire, we had Napster, we bootleg because we bootleg everything.
Yeah.
Like everything. Like, poor Terrence Crawford, poor like Errol Spence, like their whole career was bootlegged, right? We're not paying for those pay-per-views. So like the generation above us was used to the pay-per-view model because they had Tyson and everything else. So when you had De La Hoya, when you had Floyd, they still kind of like paid for those, right? Like they were conditioned. We're conditioned to steal everything. These kids are conditioned to pay for everything that they follow. They pay for the people they like, regardless of what they drop. You drop merch in a t-shirt, I need $18. I got to buy this t-shirt from my favorite TikToker. You look at a video game crew like FaZe Clan. Every kid's got FaZe Clan jerseys for video gamers with the FaZe Clan logo. They got shirts, they got hats. They go on streams on Twitch and tip them on the stream while they watch. Hey, Ma, I need $20 this week. For what? Oh, just for my game. All right. And they're not to buy a game, $20.
They tip.
They just tip watching someone else play the game.
Ridiculous, man.
Fortnite is free. And they tip someone to watch them play. Oh, man, you guys are so cool. Here goes $3. Here goes $4. That's why Jake Paul's on pay-per-view, because he's in an audience that is conditioned to pay for anything Jake Paul. Right. And he's on the older edge of that. If you tap into the 20 through 13 demo, these kids pay for everything. They pay just to, hey, can you say my name on the streaming chat?
Yeah.
Hey, young kid, 8914. Thanks for watching.
Yeah.
You like this game like I like this game. You're from Kentucky. They're like, oh my God, $10. Like, to just say their name. These kids are conditioned differently. That's why we never know, because like DAZN doesn't have the structure to put Ryan on the pay-per-view, and they don't have open metrics on these pay-per-views. I would argue if this fight happened next year and Canelo and Bivol happened next year on DAZN pay-per-view, Ryan sells 100,000 more. Ryan and Tank sell 100,000 to 150,000 more pay-per-views behind the DAZN paywall than Canelo Bivol. Because that demo is used to paying.
You know what? I agree with that. I had to think about that for a second, but nobody's posed that analogy to us like that.
No.
I agree with that. I think I do.
Yeah. And wait until we see the next generation of kids. We're not even there yet. There was the kid at the fight, at the top ranked fight. I forgot his name, Mike. You might know, but he's from Euphoria.
Javon Onward.
Yeah, he's an actor in Euphoria. He's on the new season of Umbrella Academy on Netflix. And the kid's been fighting amateurs and all this stuff. He really wants to be a boxer. And I'm like, why are you going to get punched in the face? Like, he's got Hollywood money. But he really wants to be a boxer. His social media presence, Top Rank collabed with him, did stupid numbers. Kid got like 3-4 million followers. Wait until he steps in the ring.
Javon Walton.
Wait till we get boxers like him he's 15 years old. He has 6 million followers on IG. He's going to have 10 million on TikTok in 2 years. Wait till he turns pro at 18 and he's on Netflix,
right?
And fighting and boxing. Wait till we see stuff like that. That kid's doing 2 million pay-per-view buys. Do whatever you want, because people are conditioned at those younger age now to spend. My son spends stupid amounts of money on Roblox. I don't even know what Roblox is, but I'm pretty sure it's just a video game that's like, yo, here, we're going to sit you in this room, and then you can then use our tools to build whatever video game you want, or you can download video games other people have made with our tools, meaning we don't do anything but put you here to access these things. And every now and then, oh, you want a new game? You got to pay $20. Oh, you want this new character in that game? You got to pay $5. Oh, we released a new sword. You got to pay $12. And it's just nickel and diamond. And these kids pay, and they ask their parents, and their parents pay. And these parents are like, yo, I can't buy a pay-per-view for Canelo. Why? Because my kid spent $100 on Roblox last week. Like, I can't do it. So like it's one of those things where, this new generation is conditioned differently, and they don't spend money on a sport. They don't spend money. Our fandom is to teams. Our fandom is to country, right? Like Canelo has a country behind him. We saw De La Hoya, like Fury has a country, the UK, and all this. These kids aren't programmed like that. Their fandom is to personal people, and they'll follow them anywhere. They paid Jake Paul for his YouTube stuff. These kids didn't know shit about boxing.
Yeah.
They can't. Jake Paul is their GOAT. They've never seen Ali. They've barely seen Tyson. They saw old man Tyson. Why? Because he fought on the same card as Jake Paul. They don't know anything about boxing. They transitioned over to boxing because their fandom is to a person or to a thing. It's a whole different generation. And that one person, that thing is built exclusively off of followers and shares on social media. It's going to be a wild space in the next 10 years of how do you become a boxing star? Because just having skills is not good enough. What's your numbers like? It's like everything else in the world. If you want a free meal at the most expensive restaurant in the world, you can go and you can pay $10,000. If you want that same meal and you want it to be free, you walk in, you show them an Instagram with 5 million followers and say, I'm a food critic. I want a full tasting menu, and I will post on my Instagram. That same restaurant will give you an entire meal for free.
Yeah. Get for the advertising. Yeah.
It's currency.
Yeah.
That fandom is currency. Social media fandom is currency, and it's the same in boxing. That is how currency goes. If you have 10 million followers, okay, so what are you telling me? Now, 5% of those followers have to buy a pay-per-view. 5% of your following has to buy the pay-per-view, and you do 500,000 views.
Right.
In pay-per-view sales. It's not bad. So it's all currency.
Yeah. Yeah. What a transition period we are in, especially how you just described it with this new generation of fans, especially with Jake Paul jumping into the boxing game as he has and continues to do so. And he says he's like, I want to fight a couple more times and then fight for a world title. And so far he seems like he's really serious about it. So, and him bringing all those fans, and you have Ryan Garcia and all these guys, and that euphoria actor, that young man you guys were talking about. Yep. Yeah, the times are changing, and they're changing before our eyes. But in 10 years, we're gonna look back on this conversation and be like, "Damn, that was wild." I remember talking about that. Also, in the co-main event of this DAZN card in downtown Los Angeles, Alexis Lex Rocha gets the 20th win of his career with a 10-round unanimous decision win over Luis Verron. This was for the vacant WBO, NABO welterweight title. We mentioned earlier, Kel, that we saw Alexis Rocha backstage after the event. It looks like he injured his hand. Mike, was it his right hand or was it his left hand? Do you remember? It might have been his left. I think he was, because we he saw us and we went up to him and said, "Oh, what's up?" And then we were gonna give him a fist bump, but you can tell he put his hand up, but it was very light. And then he said hi to us, and then he was like, "Oh man, I forgot how big you guys are." And then I pointed at his hand. I was like, "You all right?" He's like, "Oh yeah, it just tricks of the game. I just hurt it and stuff like that." And he's like, "It really hurts though, but hopefully he's okay. It's not broken or anything." But what did you think about his victory, Kel?
Oh man, great guy. I was not a fan of either fight on this main, under the Ryan Garcia card, just because, again, we talked about this a little earlier in the whole styles make fights things, right? I think they did them no favors with the pairing,
right,
in these matchups, because even though it had moments, the Rocha fight had moments, I thought the crowd was pretty checked out. And granted, this fight was much better than the opener, but it was still one of those things where it's just like, you have to know what your audience comes for and what you're doing when you place these talented fighters on a pay-per-view card. And sometimes, and it's going to sound real bad, sometimes this isn't the spot for a step-up fight or a fight against someone who's very defensive and they're going to cower. Sometimes you got to give them a showcase when nothing else is on the line. I thought he should have had a showcase fight. I thought this was a perfect spot to give him a third round, fourth round knockout. Let's be honest, Ryan's fans don't know him from you. If you wore his tracksuit, granted, I'm sure due to the height disparity, it'd be a very small tracksuit on you. But if you wore his tracksuit and walked through the arena afterwards, people would be asking you for an autograph. They don't know the difference between anyone and anyone. So they really don't know his opponent. So you come in, this is where you should give people highlight, knockout, real fights. Again, something Top Rank does better than a lot of people. There are times and there are cards where you're like, cool, this is where we'll give you a step up in competition. We're good. But when you're under a superstar on a card, you need to go out there and knock somebody out, bro. That's what it is. I'll never forget DAZN put Devin Haney on the Logan Paul undercard.
I remember that.
And they gave him an opponent that was equally as defensive as him, and it was a stinker.
Yeah.
And you made Devin Haney no fans that night.
Right.
When you could have gave him someone that he could have blasted in 3 rounds, and all these young kids would be like, knockout.
Yeah.
And then, who's Devin Haney? Oh, he got jewels.
Yeah, they missed an opportunity right there.
Right. He's shining. Oh, he's young like us. And Devin Haney would have been light years ahead of where he is. So you got to realize what you're doing when you put people on superstar cards. And again, good, even matchmaking that made for boring-ish fights. None of the fighters' fault. They went out there, they put on what they could put on, but it was too technical of a fight. It was a real fight. They had to treat it like a real fight. If you go out there, balls to the wall, you're going to be in danger. So you can't do that. The matchmaking should have been to get him a monster knockout and then run this fight afterwards.
Right.
It should have been a showcase fight, and it wasn't. So I just kind of left man, they did him a disservice as promoters.
Mike, what'd you think about Lex's win?
The same as what Kel said, really. He looked good. There was a couple of times where he looked like he was going to pounce at him and, hopefully take him out of there because it was a bit of a stinker. But yeah, Lex hurt his hand early on and, it kind of just coasted through the rest of the fight. But let's combine this fight with Lamont Roach against Angel Rodriguez because pretty much the same thing. That fight was a stinker as well. Like they were just going round and round. And after a while, you could see that Roach was going to win. And the same, you could see that Roach was going to win because they were just, better, but they didn't have the power and didn't maybe want to take the risk because they've got bigger fights on the horizon. And both of them really just coasted. And the fans told them because early on, you could see they were kind of like whistling and telling Lamont Roach, like, hey, this fight stinks. And kind of the similar to Alexis Rocha. But Rocha, like we kind of said on in the bonus show, is really in a tricky place because 147, apart from Virgil Ortiz, everyone else is across the street over at PBC. Yep. So, that's kind of...
Where's he going to go, yeah.
If there was any promotion, though, that would be like, hey, Virgil, Alexis, it's sink or swim time, it's Golden Boy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I could see that. I think if they can't get Virgil a big name, whether it's on PBC or even Terrence Crawford or whoever, because Virgil's pretty much he's there. Where I think he's already ranked number 1 or number 2 WBO and all that stuff. But if they can't get him, I think they're gonna tell both him and Alexis Rocha, like, all right, we're gonna put you guys together. At least get you guys a fight and keep you guys active because right now, other side doesn't want to play ball or we're having trouble making these fights. So we will see. And then you mentioned Lamont Roach get the 12-round unanimous decision win over Angel Rodriguez as well. And then David Jimenez gets the upset majority decision win over Ricardo Sandoval. Jimenez was deducted a point in round 7 and Sandoval was also down in round 11. Sandoval was the 16-1 favorite in that per Caesars Sportsbook in Las Vegas, where a lot of fights obviously happen. That was a crazy one, and a lot of people, especially in the media press box, were pretty surprised about that. Like, oh man, Sandoval, taking the loss there, so he's gonna have to regroup and come back. Moving on to this upcoming weekend fight previews. This upcoming Saturday, the 23rd of July, from the Grand Casino in Minnesota on ESPN Plus. We're talking about the plus here. Joet Gonzalez, 25-2, goes up against Isaac Dogbe for the WBO International Featherweight title. Kel, give us your preview of this fight. What do you think is going to happen?
This is one of those, like, all right, who's sticking around and who's like fading into oblivion here? Like, okay, it's billed for the number 1 contenders for a title and everything. We've seen Joet challenge for a title twice. Isaac Dogbo, again, has all the skills. It's one of those where it's another fight where it's hard to get the momentum behind it. And Top Rank is really spinning wheels here. Because, like, do you have them fight someone else after this? Because just because you're named the mandatory doesn't mean you're fighting next for the belt. Right? Like, the champion still has like 12 months to fight. So it's just like, who is going to be champion in 12 months? Are they just going to then fight someone who's, get paid to sit aside for like an undisputed fight? Or where it gets really weird and they're in a weird position. And then we've seen both of them have enough skills to compete, but not necessarily be stars. This is a card where honestly, I'm just hoping for a knockout by one of them. Don't let this go to decision. Fight like this is, in the UFC, this will be the fight where one of you guys are getting cut and going to Bellator. Yeah. So if y'all both stink it up, we're cutting to both of you. Like, that's how Dana White operates. He's just like, you guys go in there and somebody is going home. You better send them there. And that's how they should look at this fight. Like, I want to see Joet Gonzalez go balls to the wall here. To me, he always had the ability to be a really aggressive fighter, sit down on punches, be really exciting. And then it just never manifested, like, to the highest level. Like, I don't know why it doesn't transition. Dogbo's no easy opponent, but go in there and try to get him out of there. Dogbo's going to try to make this like a boxing. Go in there and say, you know what? if this is my last hurrah and I'm gonna be fighting on Triller after this, damn it, I'm going out with a bang.
Yeah.
So like that's what you need in this type of fight. But I mean, I like the rest of the card. There's some good young fighters down the card, which I'm really excited on seeing. So I really like the undercard here. I think it'll be a good fight, start to finish on E+. Probably one of those cards I could watch the entire time. But I look at this and I'm just like, man, I might like 3 of the undercard fights more than the main event. And I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. I really don't.
One of the undercard fights that is on that card, one of the younger guys, is Gabriel Flores Jr. of Stockton, California. I believe this is his first fight back since taking the first loss of his career. What's your take on Flores Jr., Kel? Top Rank has been building him up, putting a lot of stock behind him. And, he seems like he's obviously in that age group, that generation with the social media and the followers, posting a lot and trying to really embrace that side of the technological side of this world. But what do you think of him? Where is he going to be at in like 5-10 years?
It's another guy with all the tools, right? Like you have all the tools to really be good, to really be a good fighter, but I'm not sure it clicks for him. I'm not sure it really ever clicks for him because there's so many other fighters coming up behind him. It is going to be tough to say, all right, can you get better a lot faster? And then that's what he has to be. Like they've built him up. And another credit to Top Rank. God, I sound like a homer here. But when it comes to that time, they'll be like, hey man, if you're not really pushing to where you're supposed to be in your potential, we're going to feed you to one of these young kids who are.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's going to get real ugly for you. So what do you want to do? Because, I mean, right now, you look at him, 130, like who are you fighting? You're not fighting Shakur.
Yeah, no, not even close.
That gets ugly. There's a kid on this card, Abdullah Mason, who is still super young, but it's going to fill into his body. Damn near just like 18 years old. Like they signed him, he was a baby. Kind of like when he was Xander, right? Like just turned 18. But you look at a kid like that and you're just like, okay, he's already like a lightweight, but like he could slim out. Like maybe you go up and you fight that kid and he beats the brakes off of him in a year. Like that's one thing, like to one of the kids he fast tracks. He's another guy who's like, okay, what are you going to do? Go up and get beat up by Keyshawn Davis? Like it's in a spot where that loss didn't crush his career, but it's one of those reevaluating points where it's like, all right, man, you got to change. I wish there was more people looked at the game like Cepeda looks at the game. Because he's like, if I lose, I'm not just going to keep doing what I was doing.
Right.
Like, I'm going to change. And he keeps coming back better and running off these win streaks. Like,
and people forget about him, and he's a threat, man.
Every single time. But he changes every single time. And it's just like, you know what? It's a guy who wants to stay around. He just wants to be in the mix.
Yeah.
And Gabe Flores has to be that guy where it's just like, yeah, I understand what you were supposed to be. Like you're supposed to be right behind Teofimo Lopez. Like you're supposed to be one of these kids or like, you're going to be a big deal. But you suffered a loss and your skills right now don't really look like it. I call him, he's the co-chairman of the Edgar Berlanga category.
Yeah.
Where it's like, yeah, I know what you're supposed to be. I know what they pushed you as. Your skills don't match that right now. So now you got to reinvent something because you're going to lose sooner or later, or you're going to lose again sooner or later. Like if you just keep doing the same thing. So hopefully you see some new tricks from him in this fight. If I look at this, would I be shocked if he got upset? No. Like, again, he's one of those people, like, if you come out doing the same things, they got film on you, kid. Like, people are going to keep picking you apart if you don't. What was the last fight? Last fight was like a majority draw.
I believe, was it? Yeah, I believe so. Yeah. Was it the loss or was it the majority draw?
He had a loss, came back for a guy called Montoya.
Oh, majority decision.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Yeah, he had 95 on one card. The other two cards, 96, 94. Like, bro, and you're supposed to win that fight. It's probably favorable. Like you almost lost to Montoya. Like you can't come out doing the same thing. There's a blueprint on you.
Yeah.
You got swept in your loss. It wasn't competitive.
Yeah.
So it's one of like you got to try to do something different, and that's what he should focus on in this fight. Do something different, even if it's uncomfortable, even if you're not used to it. It's time to change your style.
Definitely. Beautifully put. That was perfect. Also, this upcoming weekend from the Embassy Suites in Nashville, Tennessee. Nashville getting a fight. We never talk. I don't know if we've ever mentioned Nashville on all these episodes that we've done over the years. I think this might have been the first time. I don't remember.
I think DAZN went to Nashville once.
Did they?
Like an outside show. I feel like it was Cecilia Breckus. I don't know.
It might have. You know what? I think you might have been right. Yeah. But
I just
Nashville,
remember it was like a beautiful like street show, and I was like, "This is like the best setup."
Nashville, ever. Tennessee, huh? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, first time, at least one of the first times here on the last round, we're mentioning that city. Jarrell Miller.
That was Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Okay.
So
yeah, because I was like, I would have remembered Nashville. I would have remembered Nashville.
Yeah, nothing in Nashville then. All right.
Jarrell Big Baby Miller. Yeah, he's back. All right. And the people who are listening, if you didn't want to see him back because you're upset that he popped so many times when he was trying to get the AJ fight, he was this close to getting in, then he popped and he popped again and he popped again. It's just every day that passed, you saw more reports like, oh, they got him again. And then he eventually lost the fight, gave the chance to Ruiz to step in and upset Anthony Joshua and definitely increase his paydays for the foreseeable future. Jarrell Big Baby Miller, 24-0-1, returns against Derek Cardenas, who is 8-9. We talked about Cal. You just talked about how like somebody like Alexis Rocha or Gabriel Flores Jr. Needs those fights, like those showcase fights. To get those fans behind them, like, oh, this guy's good. Knock him out, do some quick work. I can get that fan base behind them. Like, oh, I want to be a fan of this guy. I'm gonna look him up on social media and stuff like that. Obviously, Jarrell Miller. He's going up against a guy with a losing record, 8-9. Even him not having as many professional fights in the last couple of years, ever since the whole AJ debacle. He's a heavy favorite here. He should win easily by knockout, maybe early rounds 1 through 3. But do you think any major promoter still works with him after this fight or the next fight? Because he's always going to try to work his way up the rankings again. What do you think?
What do you consider major? Like, I think he could fight on Triller. I think. I
don't consider Triller a major promoter.
Okay, I think Probella might pick him up. Like, they're new. They don't have a heavyweight presence. That's why I say that.
Right.
They have other fighters who are legit fighters, no heavyweight presence.
Right.
So I think he's a guy. And sorry, Mike, not to diss your side of the pond, but I think he's the guy who could try to rebuild his career in the UK, and by fighting some of those guys, like I think Povetkin's still trying to do something.
Yeah.
If Dillian White needs a bounce back sooner or later, if who just fought 2 weeks ago in the UK, there was a heavyweight fight. I'm blanking on it. But Chisara won. Like, you're looking for people like that. I think he can get in there and mix it up. And it's far enough removed from the US where they can kind of rehab his
image,
his persona. Yeah. So like a Sky Sports can pick him up. You're looking at Boxer to maybe get in there and mix it up with some people. So I think he'd be in position for fights like that. Now, will they fully promote and invest in him like Top Rank tried to do before he popped for everything? Again, no, right? Like, because it was like, fool me once. You popped for everything under the sun against Anthony Joshua. And they were like, okay, it was your biggest fight of your life. Maybe you were nervous. You took every substance known to man. Okay, we'll chalk this up to the game. And then it happens again. And it's like, nah, come on, bro. Like, so I don't think he's not gaining any fans. And by the way, he shouldn't go out there and try to win fans. He got to play the bad guy to everything.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you got to go out there and just go balls to the wall. Like, fight a Joe Joyce. Fight somebody. Like, at this point, it's all house money. So you get a couple of these rinky-dink knockouts and then go in there and try to fight someone in the UK, because the fighters in the UK are in that position where they need new blood. Chisora was a rematch, right? Like we've seen a lot of these guys fight each other already. And it's just like, he's a good guy to throw over there. Like, the U.S. don't care about him. Come over here and get beat up a little bit.
Yeah.
And he looks believable enough. He has enough of a resume where people be like, okay, I buy him as the B-side in this opponent. But yeah, granted, Joe Joyce is a higher level than having to fight him. But if you needed a stay busy fight, I wouldn't mind seeing Joe Joyce knock him out. And there's other people in that range in the UK where I think there's a definite market if stay clean, first and foremost. If you can stay clean and pass these tests, there's some people over there that you can rumble with. So I think that's his first step. But yeah, for this next year, you fight people with losing records, you fight cab drivers, I don't care what you do, but you get tested every single fight. Like it's a heavyweight title matchup, and you test clean every single fight just to show these promoters, yo, I'm done with that. I'll take my loss if I got to take my loss. But here's the clean test. Please let me be the B-side and recoup all of this money I lost being an idiot.
Yeah, I think that Jerome Miller, I don't think he'll get signed, but he'll be the B-side in some big fights, because for every promoter's hero, you need a villain. And Jerome Miller should go all out, play the WWE villain, start pushing the crowd, maybe like swearing at him, come out in all black, like literally like pantomime villain, and he'll get paid because people wouldn't want to come to see the big cheat get knocked the fuck out. And he needs to play it. Like, there's no point in being like, I don't know, like a John Jones, like, oh, no, I'm a God-fearing guy and all this. No, play the villain. Like, you'll still get paid. He's not going to get signed because he's a cheat, but they'll bring him in for these big shows as the B-side, as the villain. And money's money. All spends the same.
Yep. And plenty of guys to fight over there. And if he thinks he's good, honestly, okay, I'm throwing out the young guys, right? Like, okay, let some of the young guys beat him up. But honestly, he can fight some of the vets. You can fight Chisora. You can fight Perfect. Like, if you test, clean, like, you can fight these guys and maybe catch them on the way out and pick up a win. And it puts you in a whole different bracket.
Dillian White needs an opponent after losing to Fury.
Yep. If you go in there and you beat Dillian White on some, I caught him. Your name's in a whole different bracket.
Yeah. You're back in the mix. Yeah.
Back in the mix. So I think the UK is definitely a spot, though. Like, don't come back and let Wilder knock your block off or anything. Like, that's not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like him versus Luis Ortiz doesn't do anything for me. Andy Ruiz, him versus Andy Ruiz kind of intrigues me. But I got to see what Andy Ruiz brings on September 3rd. I don't know.
Yeah, that's the common theme with Andy Ruiz now ever since the first AJ fight. Like, let's see what he brings to the table in his next fight.
Yeah.
News and notes section of this week's episode of The Last Round as we go towards the finish line. We're gonna touch on a couple things in the news and notes section, Kel, and you just give us your quick take on it. Sinisa Estrada, who was a fighter under Golden Boy Promotions until this past weekend. It was actually reported on Saturday, the day of the Ryan Garcia Golden Boy DAZN card, that Sinisa Estrada, who was on the DAZN broadcast, she was there doing some commentary and giving her thoughts and opinions on the entire event. It was reported that she wanted to renegotiate her contract with Golden Boy, and Golden Boy couldn't find any middle ground. They couldn't, I guess, give her the number that she was looking for or what have you. And they granted her release. So she is now a free agent. What do you think, Kel? Do you think she goes maybe to like somebody like Matchroom Eddie Hearn, who has a pretty big female stable, does prominently feature a lot of female fighters on a lot of cards, or what do you think? Maybe Jake Paul?
I was going to say, Eddie Hearn's check should be in the mail already. So I doubt she goes anywhere else. I'm pretty sure like Eddie Hearn's like, oh, exactly what we wanted. And she's great on commentary, by the way. But I think the best move for her would be a short-term deal with MVP Promotions. People say whatever they want about Jake Paul. I think at the end of this, Jake Paul, like say 20 years, will be a better promoter than he ever was a boxer. And I think he sticks as a promoter. I really do. Like, if we look at it, what did Mayweather know about building other people?
Right.
Built himself. Tank is a godsend, but outside of Tank, who has he built?
Right.
Oscar De La Hoya's had one hell of a career, right? But I mean, he hired someone who was very smart in Richard Schaefer, and then had people go out there and find him some pretty good talent. But I'd argue if they didn't have the Mexican backing, what did Oscar build for them? Right? Like Ryan was a star on social media by himself. Canelo was a star in Mexico. There's a large contingent that doesn't like Canelo in Mexico. But regardless, he was polarizing in Mexico and had like people tuning in. But Canelo built them now, the United States market and overseas market, after he left. This free agency and English-speaking Canelo and everything is huge.
Yeah.
Like, he's building stuff. The golf tour stuff, like, Oscar didn't do any of that. Jake Paul can't be any worse than any of these other former boxers taking a crack at this. I think he's already, what he's been able to do with Amanda Serrano and her career and, like, the spot she's in, that's great promotional work. You give him someone like Estrada, I think he can make her a legit star. Because people like Amanda Serrano's great. Her personality is not Estrada's personality.
Right.
Her social presence isn't that. Like, Amanda Serrano's toward the end of her career. She's not cool with the kids. You don't look at her and be like, "Ooh, she's on TikTok." Like, no.
Yeah.
He made her a star. Estrada, you'd be like, "Oh my God, yeah." Like, her IG's probably dope already. I don't even know her IG.
Yeah.
Like, she could speak. She's on commentary. She's great. You can put her in front of a microphone here, there. Like, she can do cool little workout videos, hit the bag on IG, because she could do the Ryan Garcia. Like, her quickness is stupid.
Yeah.
She could do the Ryan Garcia thing. Her highlight package is incredible. She hit the girl with the trunks on that said "Mom," flipped it upside down and said "Wow." It was like a 7-second knockout. Incredible. Like, you give that stuff to Jake Paul's team, like, they'll package that. And I think that's the type of people he should sign going forward. And I think those type of people should look at him seriously as a promoter and the freedom to work with all these different promotions. If she wants to fight someone on Matchroom, Jake will let her. We saw the Katie Taylor fight. Like, with Jake will let her. You got to deal with Showtime. You get fights in between. You can fight on his cards, which get tons of views still. And then when they don't, you can fight on Amanda Serrano's card, because I'm damn sure they'll give you the co-main for her and the Katie Taylor rematch.
Yeah.
Like, these young kids, this next generation, like Mark Castro, who's on the Jake Paul card, lo and behold, because he's a social media kid. And it was like, Showtime was like, social media kid, get this Jake Paul promotion. Like, it's one of those things where it's real. So if you're young, he's a guy where you look at it, you'd be like, yeah, damn, I should sign with him. Plus, he's influencing so many young kids in the boxing game that I think 10 years from now, we're going to see a wave of kids who've grown up watching Jake Paul fights and be like, I want to sign to him. And they're going to be like really good boxers, though. And then you're going to be like, damn, Jake Paul got some really good fighters. And he's like a 40-year-old promoter just laughing it up and bagging on people and going at Eddie Hearn. And they're just going back and forth all the damn time. And old man Bob Arum, because Bob will still be around.
He will. He's still going.
He's going to be there shaking his head all day. Like, damn, young kids. And I think that's where we're going to go. So I think Jake Paul would be a great place for her to sign, honestly. I think if Eddie Hearn didn't just slide the check right over, like on commentary, if he was just like, hi, and just slides it nonchalantly across the desk, and she just like lifts it up, shakes her head like, yep, this is it. So I think Eddie tries to push to sign her, but signing with Jake would be a good move for her.
Yeah. I think she goes with one or the other. And also some news that broke this week, not too long ago. Boxing Scene reported that some court and public documents showed third-party lobbyists receiving payments for rankings connected to the WBA. Kel, is this really news to any hardcore boxing fan, or have we always known that something behind the scenes is happening?
Sir, I'm shocked, right? Like, come on, like this is by. Has anyone seen the rankings before? Like, someone could be ranked number 1 in the WBA and be ranked number 8 in the WBC, and then some champions are not ranked at all. Like, it's just one of those things where it's like, these rankings are ridiculous. It's not based off of merit. It's not based off of, resume. It's not based off of even if you wanted to tell me you were projecting skill set. And you're like, yo, I'm just going to project this guy and put him at number 2 because I know number 3 has one hell of a resume. But if they happen to fight, this guy is better. Like, lie to me and just say it's based off of projections. It ain't based on none of that.
The fact that we got, who was it, Trevor Bryan and Jonathan Guidry, who is a deep sea fisherman this year, fighting for the WBA heavyweight title. No, Danny, it doesn't surprise me.
No, WBA right now, and I just have lightweight still up, right? So there's no one in the number 1 spot, and Oscar's planning on asking Ryan to jump.
Yeah.
Then we have Jezreel Corrales, number 2. Michael Rivera, number 3. Lomachenko at 4 on the WBA. Rolly Romero at 5.
Wow.
On the WBA. I think it's starched. Ryan Garcia at 6, which probably changes. Kambosos, after losing his titles once to Devin Haney, who's pretty damn good, is at 7.
Damn.
Jojo Diaz is at 10. Excuse me? Jezreel Corrales is at number 2, and Jojo Diaz is at 10. Isaac Cruz, who pushed Tank to the limit, who, by the way, is your champion, one of your 2 champions. Isaac Cruz is at 12.
Wow.
On this, Rolly Romero is at 5, and he got knocked out by Gervonta. Isaac Cruz is at 12 after just dismantling Kambosos and pushing Gervonta to the limit. Frank Martin, who's hell of a fighter, is at 14. Like, are you kidding me? Richard Comey is not ranked by the WBA. Berenchik, who is number 2 in the WBO, is unranked in the WBA.
And if you go to middleweight, I think Sergio Maravilla Martinez is actually ranked.
Yeah. The last time we checked, I think he was ranked, right?
Middleweight or super middleweight, I believe.
Oh, man. And you would think with this article being written, being reported on the WBA shadow lobbying, payments in the background, like the IBF, the feds went after the IBF years ago and dropped the bomb on them. And, the IBF, I'm sure there's still some shady dealings behind the scenes, but the IBF, at least, if you kind of try to look at all of them in some sort of objective manner, maybe the IBF is.
No, there's some of their rankings are atrocious. Their middleweight.
Oh yeah, the rankings suck. The rankings suck. But what was that? What was the most recent example I can think of where they stripped? It was a big name fighter, and they said, "Oh, you have to fight this person," and the person was a no name.
Wasn't it Derevchenko?
Was it?
It was somebody when Derevchenko was coming up.
Yeah,
Triple G or someone like that had the title, and they were like, "Hey, you have to fight Derevchenko," who was like really, really good, but no name. And they were like, I don't want to fight him. And then I think they stripped him. And Derevchenko ended up fighting and lost, obviously, because he fought, twice for the world title, right? Against Triple G and somebody else and lost both of them. Was it Charlo? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, in that regard, they stick to their guns in a way in some form like that. But yeah, man, we had somebody on a couple of years ago, a fighter. And I remember he talked to us after we interviewed him in person. So we were right across from him, and he told us after we finished recording, we were just kind of talking about, different things and stuff like that. And then, we brought up the topic of rankings, and he said, "Oh," he's like, "That's easy." He's like, "We just make a phone call." That's all he said. He's like, "Oh yeah." He's like, "That's nothing." He's like, I can go to number 2 right now if I want." He's like, "We just call up so-and-so and boom, there it is." So
it's ridiculous. Janabek, who's a co-champion in the WBO and an animal, right? Like Demetrius Andrade, no parts in it. So Andrade ducked him. Janabek's the co-champion, should just be the champion. He is not ranked by the WBC, WBA, or IBF at 160.
Right.
And he's run through everyone in front of him. Like, who does? These are just, it's all ridiculous. It really is. Like, at this point, you got to get ranked by 1 and force fights in between your mandatories to collect belts like Thanos collecting Infinity Stones,
Yeah.
and pray to God, someone doesn't Thor you and go for the head. Like, you just better just like last long enough to get all of them. And it's a complete crapshoot. It'd be great if everyone, cool, you want your sanctioning fees, you want your stupid money, whatever, take it, be greedy, I don't care. 4-belt system, have at it. Like, this system's ridiculous, but I'm not going to tell people to change that right now.
Right.
But rankings, and in terms of when someone fights for what title or whatever, let's make it pretty universal and say, hey, for the main titles, if you want to give out your little cookie cutter belts underneath, you give those to whoever the hell you want. For the main titles, let's have like someone like Ring, who pretty much holds the belt for the best fighters in the world. Like Ring Magazine, or get a panel from everywhere, and you say, hey, we're going to have legit rankings. And then this, you want someone to fight for your title, they got to be in the top 10 here to fight for one of these major titles. And you start limiting the field. So, okay, we have Gennady Golovkin at 160, Jermell Charlo, Arisandy Lara, Janabek, and Jaime Munguia, Chris Eubank Jr., Ryota Murata, and let's throw someone else in there. That's about it. I really care for 160. But whatever. Find someone else. Who's at the top of this? Carlos Adames. Sure, whatever. Throw all these people in there. You have a 10 and say these 10 are going to fight for those 4 titles. Yeah, I'll figure this out. Now, if this guy already fought this guy and he's cleared out this top 10 already, all right, then organically, he has to fight one of the other champions.
Yeah.
Because you can't give him mandatory that's not on this list. So when you run out of people that's on this list, we're going to get champions fighting champions. And that's as close as you get to like a UFC system. Where it's like 10 people at any given time can fight for this belt. If you want to crack this 10, youngster, you better fight one of them and take his spot. And then we can go through it. Someone loses twice in the top 10. Say you lose to this champion, you're out of the top 10. We're getting somebody else in here. So you either got to take their spot or someone got to lose twice. And then we're going to figure it out. And then I think you get legit champions. You get champions fighting champions. You get a better model in how to do things. And you have an impartial committee where money, honestly, people would just pay this committee off to then rank people. But at least, like, just make it make sense.
Right.
Like, it's hard to mess up 10. I can look at 10 and tell you some people belong.
Yeah.
It's when you go deeper than that where it gets kind of ridiculous. When Virgil Ortiz isn't, well, I mean, he's ranked by everyone, but who's here? Conor Benn is not ranked in the top 10 of the WBA or the IBF.
Man. And he should be.
Or excuse me, in the top 5. Like, it's ridiculous, right? Like, we get people like that for what? No, just give us a universal top 10 by a committee, trusted people. Same people vote for, same system. People vote for MVP. And in basketball, you can find people with credentials to do it and be impartial. And let's get the best fights. Because that's all people care about is the best fights. That's why the UFC gets money hand over fist for every single pay-per-view.
Yeah.
If the
$1 billion company,
If the UFC did pay-per-view sales anywhere in the range of Gervonta Davis, Dana White will be losing his damn mind.
Yeah.
He'd be running butt naked down Las Vegas Boulevard just like a crazy man because he think he's going bankrupt if he did Gervonta Davis numbers on a pay-per-view.
Yeah.
You understand? They run monthly pay-per-views and do $600K.
It's ridiculous.
Because
they're a brand. They became a brand. People just pay for the name UFC. Like, oh, UFC's on.
Because one is going to fight 2 or 4 is going to fight 6. And your champions are going to fight people who are championship quality every single fight. And I'm not even asking for that in boxing. The champ can fight number 8, but you can't fight number 58. Like, that makes no sense. Fight number 8 in the division if you have to. Fight somebody from this top 10. But you don't fight somebody who's in the top 10. And that's why people buy UFC pay-per-views religiously.
Yeah. Oh, man. We can talk about this topic for hours and hours. And, I feel like we've talked about it so many hundreds of hours on this show over the last several years. And hopefully they listen eventually. It's going to be when we least expect it. Like, oh, we did something, we got it. But who knows? Who really knows? But Kel Dansby of ESPN Ringside and the Corner Podcast, we definitely appreciate your time, especially this being your first time here on the last round. It sucks I didn't get to meet you in person on Saturday in downtown LA. We were in the same building. We just, thousands of people. We just couldn't link up. But you did meet Mike, so eventually. You're also on the West Coast, so I'm sure we'll see each other soon. Especially with all these fights in LA and Vegas, I'm sure we'll cross paths eventually. But before we let you go, before we end the show, go ahead and plug anything you got, social media, everything. Go for it, man.
Sure. You can follow all my stuff personally at Kel Dansby on Instagram and Twitter. It's KELDANSBY. Follow the Corner Podcast wherever you guys listen to podcasts like this amazing one right here with myself and my co-host Andres Hale. Follow ESPN Ringside on all social platforms. That's where you see my day work, my day job stuff, which is amazing. If I say so myself, I love covering boxing in all aspects of it. So we try to give not only just the hardcore news and fight highlights, but also what fighters are doing in between fights, the drama, as my grandma says, the bonchinche, everything that surrounds the fight game. We love all of that. So I appreciate you guys for having me on. We're definitely catching up here soon this summer. Hopefully I see you guys out here for Teofimo on August 13th, ESPN event here in Vegas. That'd be amazing. But yeah, I appreciate you guys. Amazing show. Thank you for having me on.
We appreciate it, man. And Mike, as we normally do, go ahead and let them know where they can find us and follow us before we finish off here.
We are at the Last Round 12 on Instagram and Twitter, and be sure to join us next week. We'll be reviewing all the shows that we previewed, and then looking forward to Adam Kausnacki is back and Gary Russell Jr. on July the 30th from the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. Another Showtime card. So for once again, our guest of the week in ESPN Ringsides and the Corner Podcast is Kel Dansby. For my co-host Michael Shepard, I'm Danny Z. This is the Last Round.
Thanks for supporting and listening to the show. Follow us at The Last Round 12 on social media. Rate, review, and subscribe. This is the Last Round Podcast.